This is Prime Business. I'm Charles Ayitey. This evening, it's been a busy week of SME-related conferences in Ghana, with the highlight being the 13th World Trade Promotion Organizations Conference, where trade leaders from the International Trade Center and the Continental Free Trade Secretariat signed a private sector pact to aid SMEs become competitive and resilient under the single African market. But behind these initiatives exist stark impediments that scare Ghanaian entrepreneurs from expanding through the continent. I engaged the National President of Borderless Alliance, Ziad Hamoui, who shares some major concerns about doing business as an SME.
Eventually, enhancing competitiveness of SMEs goes a long way in enhancing the production of the African countries and the local goods and services. But then you also need to work on building the infrastructure that will allow them to trade across borders, across Africa and into the world, actually.
And speaking of infrastructure, do you think it's been laid down, or the current existing challenges to the deficit of infrastructure?
I think the deficit is too wide. I think your team was covering last week's conference, the CILT Africa Forum 2022, right? And the infrastructure gap that is perceived in the next 10 years for Africa is 1.7 trillion. That's a huge infrastructure gap, and we have to start tackling that one in order to enhance the trade across our corridors and to ensure that we can trade among ourselves by reducing the costs and the times. If you don't have the adequate infrastructure along the roads, at the seaports, across the borders, how can you trade with other countries? So there is an infrastructure gap, and there needs to be a concerted effort towards developing the basic and adequate infrastructure that allows a competitive movement of goods.
Well, there is an appetite for Ghana's growing financial technology and automotive sectors as investors from the diaspora through the Ghana Investment Promotion Center inject over $200 million into these spaces this year. The CEO of the GIPC, Yofi Grant, reveals that these investments are being channeled to young Ghanaian entrepreneurs and startups in the country, developing products and solutions in these ventures. He spoke to Joy Business at the dinner night of the 13th World Trade Promotion Organizations Conference.
Almost every year, averagely, Ghanaians in the diaspora send home approximately $3 billion. Some even say, if you add the informal bit, it might be $5 billion a year. That's more than we attract in FDI. That's more than we even go to the markets for in a year. So it's significant. So what we're trying to do was first to get them excited about the Ghana opportunity, which I always say is amazingly attractive, but also to see if we can build partnerships and linkages for trade. And we anticipated that would meet some mixed feelings. But what we saw was amazing. That suddenly we had a whole slew of people who were looking at the Ghana market. In fact, today we are moving from an MOU to a framework agreement with a major black company called Overland Turnberg, who are looking at coming to Ghana, establish a beachhead in Ghana for Africa. And they will actually even manufacture components for the technology space. They are also a facilitator and integrator for many of the big technology companies like Microsoft, Cisco, and others. And so they want to bring that strength to Ghana, create opportunity. Quite recently, we've onboarded a company we've been talking to for 2 years, WebHelp. WebHelp is a BPO company. They specialize in BPOs.
Well, MTN has given the firm assurance that the current economic environment will not affect its investment in the country. They fear that the telecom giant may scale down its investment as a result of rising inflation rate and other tax measures. But visiting Group Executive Ralph Mupita that says that will not be Ghana's situation. Here's more.
Speaking at a media engagement in Accra as part of his working visit to Ghana, Mr. Mupita noted that they have taken this decision because of the role that Ghana plays in the group in terms of returns.
We want to have a sustained investment program so that in a market like Ghana, that every Ghanaian has the capacity to enjoy the benefits of a modern connected life. We're not changing that view. So if we are true to that vision, we must sustain the capex. Yes, there may be some margin pressure here and there, but we'll figure it out. We'll find more efficiencies. So we're not going to reduce the level of investment. Whatever investment commitments we've made, and we've made many commitments to stakeholders here, we are going to meet those to ensure that we build the digital infrastructure for the progress of Ghanaians and to make sure that we align ourselves to nation-state programs like the Ghana Cares program.
On the e-levy and whether it could affect its profits and the business at large, the group chief executive of MTN was of the view that, for now, they see it as burden sharing to help government deal with the current challenges facing the economy.
We are going to continue investing in driving an expansion of the digital ecosystem to enable e-commerce, to enable payments. We'll have some short-term pressures on revenue, for sure. But you've got to look around the corner. You've got to look over the hill to say, what is the direction of travel? And the direction of travel is, deepening payments, e-commerce, bank tech, insurtech. Those verticals are the future of what will sustain particularly small, medium enterprises who need very specific situations to make their businesses successful. And so, the e-levy, it's as I said, it's early days. If you ask me the question in 6 months' time, I'll have more data.
He also announced that they are working to increase the percentage of shares that Ghanaians can hold in MTN Ghana.
To your point around the IPO, we successfully IPO'd and had participation of about 12.5% in 2018, if I remember correctly. I think I was here for the IPO itself and the celebrations that go to it. But we've committed as the MTN Group to further localize and have more Ghanaians owning the shares of MTN Ghana, and that we want to get to at least 30. So the 30 is the target that we have committed to. I'm very pleased to say we've made progress. We're now at precisely 23.7%. So we've got another 6.7% of shares to localize. And the reason we want that is we want more and more Ghanaians to enjoy and participate in the economic success of Ghanaians, over time, because they are also the consumers. So that program of further localization remains intact, and all things going well, we are targeting to get to that 30%, no later than the end of the year. There are always market conditions that may affect us, but, we are going to try and get to that 30% localization.
The recent regulatory reforms that has taken place in Ghana, Mr. Mopita noted that they are putting measures in place to lessen the shocks on the business.
Now, the stock market closed this week, recording a year-to-date loss of 8.07%, with 4 gainers and 1 loser. Joining me via Zoom is Adam Agbama, who is the head of trading at the Republic Securities, with some market update. Adam, grateful that you could join us. How was the level of activity this week on the stock market, and what should we expect next week?
Good evening. Activities on the stock market this week fell significantly as market remains heavy on the sell side. The market closed recording the total volumes traded of 1.67 million shares, representing values traded of 3.9 million Ghana cedis. As we can see, the financial stock index recorded a year-to-date gain of 2.72%, and then SIC led the gainers, recording 7.69 percentage week-on-week gain to close at 28 pesos per share. We also saw Cal Bank, New Gold ETF, and Total also gaining some pesos, whilst GCB was the only loser for the week, losing about 0.39 percentage to close at 5.07 Ghana cedis per share. For next week, we expect SIC, Access Bank, Cal Bank, and MTN to gain some pesos based on the buying pressures on the market, whilst we expect GCB and ETI to lose some pesos based on the supply side on the market.
And we'll see how that one goes, especially with MTN and Cal Bank. We're grateful, Adam, for analysis on the stock market closing this week and projections for next week. Well, away from that, crops are noted to be nutritious. Well, they are rich in vitamins, calcium, zinc, and many other minerals. With all these, just how much will it cost you to have them in your soup or stew this weekend? On today's episode of Joy Business Shopping, let's Beverly Broom finds out.
Adodi. Ni me no dry.
Dry, no dey gbin no ni gbin ko fresh.
So fa ne nyenye ofiole.
Adode ne lo ne tinsen 5 cedi.
First nyenye hole.
First e wo hole 4 cedi.
Ni ene bibi we
2 cedi.
O fa ne wope
ene le 1 cedi.
Ene 1.
Le na kan no 1 cedi. Then it be a 2 cedi, be a 5 cedi. Be a could be 3 cedi, there could be 4 cedi. In a 4 cedi. Come Mokonto 20 cedi. Neke malege. Agboe. Ene le 8 cedi.
Ekome 8 cedi.
First only 5 cedi. Ekaka mko buy 20 Ghana male 3.
E wokwe bibi.
Ene first year wahole 3 cedi get 2 cedi. She be ane legele wafi ejo ne ken 5 cedi. Agbo ne ken ejo 20 Ghana.
O ka mo konta 10 cedi enyo bale.
Am konta 10 cedi male enyo.
E wa nenye.
Mabu 20 Ghana. First je na ka wo hole. First wo ha 20 Ghana.
To me ni na ke eneme fio.
Ko ba wo ngbe wonu.
Okay.
Ke mo mi floor. Esu mo muchuru ni wa.
E wo kem mi ya he ni nketeshani ina koma yuzwe.
Oba ha le sugar cane. Ba full wo mi.
She aka
feel wo. Ko wo fridge me ba gbo. She fite ba nyon ho.
Well, businesses are warning of a possible collapse of the operations if the Bank of Ghana goes ahead to increase the policy rate once again. This follows a comment by the governor of the Bank of Ghana that the necessary actions will be taken to check rising inflation rate as the MPC meets on Monday for a final decision. Take a listen to the AGI's president as well as the Chamber of Commerce and Industry CEO speak earlier to George Riafi on PM Express.
Do I get from you that
I wanted to address
the policy rate?
No, the policy rate should be increased.
But the inflation is a bigger monster than
because
inflation is eroding that reserves you are.
But the governor did say he believes it is peaked. So if it is peaked, give it time to do the downside approach. But if it is not, then that will go contrary to the statement he's made. And as you indicate, if you look at the dynamics, you could still feel that the triggers and the causation of the inflation are still in there. One clear example is this shortage of fertilizer. And when do you procure fertilizer and put into the planting season, and then the planting season gives you the yield for the next season? Are you sure that you could tame that scarcity now? And it's a supply constraint. That's why I use the word, it's a cost push factor that is driving these issues. And he asked one more question, that did we anticipate this inflationary rate?
Challenge,
we did in industry, and I was here once we did, and we engaged on this matter. And we did say this from the 2019 when we had a policy misalignment of this benchmark discount value. And we argued out until recently we have a partial restoration, which is still not full. It's underpinning part of the cost-related matters, and that also fuels into the various events that play out from the what we call the pandemic, the supply constraint by virtue of the pandemic. We saw the rating agencies' activity that affected the exchange rate just in the early aspect of the year, that drove the exchange rate down, the domestic revenue mobilization through the budget. We saw the struggle. All these things had some impact and driven this inflationary rate up. We anticipated it because it put the debt management position of the country in a precarious position. And therefore, the cyclical effect, we saw some indications that we will go into some difficult times.
The only way out is to begin to now transfer even majority of such costs to consumers, and that will, for me, will rather also push the inflation up. Because if you continue to absorb, as you say, we have been absorbing during the COVID time, and at this time it's here.
It's down to the.
It's down to the. So what? Any other probably way of absorb? If you are not careful, you end up killing your. The only way out, two ways. One is to transfer the cost to consumers. The second one is to sit down for your business to collapse, or you cut down your production level. And that, for me, will have a strong negative effect on the economy.
That'll be it for Prime Business. I'll leave you with international business news. I'm Charles Ayitey. Many thanks for watching.